This is Whispers of the Universe. Between every light, a shadow waits. Tonight, let the world soften around you. Let your breath slow, let your body rest. You are safe here, listening to words that do not demand, only invite. You do not need to remember. You do not need to follow closely. Let the words drift like a tide against your thoughts. Let them wash over you gently, the way moonlight spills across a quiet floor. Close your eyes if you wish. Feel how darkness wraps the room like a soft blanket. Feel how even now, shadows stretch around you, not to frighten, but to hold. They are the companions of light. They are the quiet witnesses of being. Shadows have always been with us. Long before language, long before fire, a child in a cave once saw their own hand reflected on stone. The flicker of flame made the hand grow larger, then smaller, then vanish. And in that moment, the child learned a truth. Light and shadow are never apart. They dance together, silent and inseparable. Imagine yourself standing at dawn. The sun is not yet above the horizon, but already the world begins to change. Shadows, long and delicate, stretch like ribbons across the ground. They move before you move. They bend, they lengthen, they dissolve. They are not fixed, yet they are faithful. A shadow is not a thing. It has no substance, no weight. You cannot touch it. You cannot hold it in your hands. And yet, it is there. Evidence that light has met resistance, that matter exists, that you yourself are present in this world. What is a shadow? Science will tell us it is the absence of light, a region where light has been blocked, bent, or scattered. But absence is never complete. Even in the deepest cave, the faint glow of unseen particles lingers. Even in the vastness between stars, darkness hums with invisible radiation. So perhaps a shadow is not absence at all. Perhaps it is a softer presence, a whisper of light in retreat. Think of the penumbra. When the sun hides behind the moon, its light does not vanish instantly. There is a gradient, a twilight fringe, where brightness and darkness blend. This half-light, this almost dark, is also shadow. It is a reminder that the universe resists absolutes. There is rarely only black or only white. There is in between, a space where both exist together. Now imagine the umbra, the deepest heart of shadow, where no light penetrates. It feels total, but even there, your eyes will search, your mind will create form. Humans are creatures of vision. We see patterns even in darkness. We fill the void with stories, with fears, with wonders. The shadow is a canvas for imagination. In the old myths, shadows were spirits, phantoms of ancestors, or signs of another world. People looked at their own silhouettes and wondered if perhaps the soul was a shadow tethered to the body. Some feared losing it. Some believed it would follow them into the afterlife. Even today, in dreams, the figure of shadow returns, half known, half remembered. But step away from fear. Step closer to wonder. Shadows are not only omens, they are artists. Look at the forest in late afternoon. The branches cast lacework upon the ground. Leaves ripple, their shadows weaving in and out like liquid tapestry. The world becomes a moving painting. Without shadow, there would be no contrast, no depth, no form. Light alone blinds, darkness alone conceals. Together they create. Painters know this well. Chiaroscuro, the art of light and shadow. A candle on a table, a face emerging from gloom, a story told not by lines, but by the space where light does not reach. Poets know it too. They write of twilight, of dusk, of the thin veil between visibility and obscurity. They write of shadows, not as endings, but as beginnings of mystery. Science, too, in its quiet way, relies on shadows. Astronomers measure the universe by watching how shadows shift across planets. An eclipse is nothing more than one body casting a shadow upon another. Yet in that shadow, we learn of orbits, of distances, of the clockwork of the cosmos. Shadows give us knowledge. They reveal by concealing. Even within you, shadows live. Not just the ones cast by lamps and stars, but the shadows of memory, the darker corners of thought. Psychologists speak of the shadow self, the parts of us we hide, deny, or do not yet understand. But these shadows are not enemies. They are invitations. They wait patiently for light to return. And when we allow it, we discover that shadow and light together make us whole. Sit now with your own shadow. Even if you cannot see it in the dark, it is here, beside you. It will be with you tomorrow when the sun rises, stretching across the ground as you walk. It will change with the hours. It will vanish in certain lights, but it will always return. It is loyal in its silence. Imagine your shadow as a friend. It follows without complaint. It listens without judgment. It needs no reward, no recognition. It simply mirrors your being. When you raise your hand, it raises too. When you bow your head, it bows. When you rest, it rests. There is tenderness in this. To know that even when you feel alone, something is always beside you, moving when you move, still when you are still. A quiet dance partner, a silent twin, and perhaps that is why shadows soothe us, because they remind us that light is near. For a shadow cannot exist without light. Darkness without light is void, but a shadow is different. It is shaped by light, defined by light. Every shadow is proof that illumination exists. Every shadow whispers, the light has not left, it is only changed. So tonight, as you drift, imagine the birth of shadows. The first fire lit in the first night. The way figures moved across cave walls. The way early humans watched their silhouettes dance, amazed and frightened, comforted and inspired. Shadows were their first teachers of wonder, and they remain ours still. Breathe slowly. Let your thoughts soften. You are resting in a room of shadows. They stretch on the walls, gentle, harmless, like brush strokes of silence. You are not in their way. You are part of their dance, part of the endless conversation between light and darkness. And as your eyes grow heavy, remember this. In every shadow, light is hidden. In every darkness, a seed of brightness waits. You do not need to seek it. You only need to rest. The universe will carry the dance forward. Light will move, shadow will follow, and you will drift quietly between them, safe, unhurried, part of the silent dance. The day begins softly. Before the sun rises, the world is a palette of gray and silver. Shadows are everywhere, but they are gentle, spread thin across fields and rooftops. They do not frighten. They simply remind us that night has not yet ended, that the horizon is still deciding whether to yield its secret. At dawn, the dance begins anew. The first light spills over the edge of the world, and instantly shadows stir. They stretch long across the ground, fingers of darkness reaching toward the west. Every blade of grass casts its own shadow. Every pebble, every leaf draws a line of night behind it. The earth becomes a tapestry woven of brightness and shade. You can almost feel the rhythm. Light advances, shadows retreat. Light retreats, shadows advance. It is a cycle older than memory, a choreography written in the tilt of the planet. Imagine yourself standing in an open field. The air is cool with morning. The grass is damp beneath your feet. As the sun rises higher, you notice your shadow shrinking. At first, it is long, so long it could reach the edge of the horizon. But minute by minute, step by step, it draws closer to you, until at noon it crouches beneath your feet, small and dense. You hardly notice it then, but it is there, quiet as ever. This shrinking and stretching is the daily breath of the world. Morning exhales shadows, noon inhales them, evening exhales again. The planet itself seems to breathe through the length of your silhouette. Our ancestors watched this carefully. With nothing but the sun and its shadow, they built sundials. A stick placed upright in the soil became a clock, its shadow the hand that measured time. There were no numbers, no ticking gears, just the slow movement of darkness around a circle. In those days, time was not a cage of seconds. It was a dance of shadows, a spiral of light across the earth. And still, in a way, we live by that dance. Though our clocks glow with digital certainty, our bodies respond to light. Morning light wakes us, evening shadow calms us. The length of day tells plants when to bloom, animals when to hunt, humans when to rest. Shadows, without words, guide the rhythm of life. Think of evening now. The sun begins to sink, its golden light spilling sideways. Shadows grow again, stretching long across streets and valleys. Trees cast stripes of night upon the ground. Mountains throw veils of darkness over villages. The world seems taller because everything has an echo in shadow. There's a tenderness in this hour. Photographers call it the golden hour, when light is soft and shadows are kind. Faces glow warmly. Buildings blush with amber. Even ordinary stones seem holy. And yet, what makes the hour beautiful is not just the light. It is the marriage of light and shadow, the balance, the harmony. As the sun touches the horizon, shadows stretch into infinity. Your own form becomes a giant towering across the land. It feels almost magical, as if you have been multiplied, as if part of you walks beyond reach. This is shadow as reminder. You are larger than you know, and yet you are fading too, or returning to the night. Then the sun slips below the line. Shadows no longer have direction. They dissolve into one another until the whole world is shadow. But it does not feel like loss. It feels like rest. Day has given way to night. Light has handed the world back to darkness. And still the dance goes on, waiting for the next dawn. Somewhere, always, the dance is happening. When you sleep, another hemisphere wakes. Their shadows stretch while yours vanish. Their noon is your midnight. The planet twirls in its slow pirouette, and shadows sweep across continents like a moving tide. It is never ending. It is global. it is cosmic. Shadows of day and night remind us of time, not the mechanical time of alarms and schedules, but the ancient time, the breathing time, the time that belongs to earth and sky. When you notice your shadow lengthening, you are noticing the earth turn. When you see it vanish beneath you, you are standing in the balance of light. Pause and breathe. Feel the gentle pull of that cycle. You are part of it as much as oceans, as much as forests, as much as stars. Every breath you take belongs to the rhythm of day and night. Every heartbeat is echoed in the length of your shadow. There is something soothing in this. To know that the world does not rush, that even when life feels hurried, the sun still rises slowly, shadows still creep patiently across the ground. The dance is steady. The dance is sure. And you, by listening now, are remembering its pace. Imagine now that you are watching a single candle. It flickers in the dark, casting tiny shadows across the room. Even here, indoors, the dance continues. The flame sways, shadows shift. A small version of the cosmic choreography is happening on your walls. The candle is the sun. The objects are worlds. The shadows are night falling gently. From the smallest flame to the largest star, the principle is the same. Light moves, shadows respond. It is a dialogue written everywhere, on stone, on water, on skin. When you walk tomorrow, watch your shadow. Notice how it leads you in the morning, how it hides at noon, how it follows in the evening. Notice how it never leaves, never abandons. It only shifts its place in the dance. And tonight, as you rest, let the image of that dance soothe your thoughts. You are like the earth, turning slowly in the light. You are like the shadow, stretching and shrinking, faithful and calm. You are both, light and shadow together. So breathe again. Let the cycle of day and night carry you gently towards sleep. The sun will rise. The shadows will stretch. The sun will set. The shadows will dissolve. And you will be part of it without effort, without worry. This is the dance of day and night, the endless rhythm, the silent choreography, the whisper of light and darkness woven into every hour. Rest in it now. Let it cradle you. Let it move through you and drift softly, knowing that tomorrow the shadows will begin their dance again. The word shadow sounds simple, a shape of darkness, a place where light does not go. But the truth, when you look closely, is far more subtle and far more beautiful. Science tells us that shadows are not things. They are patterns, outcomes of light meeting matter. When light travels in straight lines, it can be blocked, bent, or scattered. And wherever it is blocked, a shadow appears. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the sun above, its rays falling toward the earth. They move in straight paths, parallel, relentless. When they meet the solid body of a mountain, they cannot pass through. Behind the mountain, a region forms where the rays cannot reach. This is shadow. It is geometry written by light. But shadows are not all the same. There are gradations, layers of darkness, like notes of music in a single chord. The deepest shadow is called the umbra. This is the place where light is fully blocked. If you stand there, you see no trace of the source. During a total solar eclipse, the umbra of the moon falls on Earth. For those within it, the sun disappears entirely. The sky darkens, stars emerge, and day becomes night. It is the most dramatic of shadows, a silence that falls across the world for a few brief minutes. Surrounding the umbra is the penumbra. Here, light is only partly blocked. Some rays reach in, others do not. The result is a softer shadow, a gradient between light and dark. When you hold your hand near a lamp, you will notice the edges of your shadow are fuzzy. That blur is the penumbra, the space where light and darkness mingle. And beyond even that, in certain alignments, there is the antumbra. It occurs when the blocking object is smaller than the light source. Imagine the moon passing directly in front of the sun, but not large enough to cover it fully. From Earth, you would see a ring of fire, a bright circle surrounding a dark disk. This too is shadow, but a shadow that frames light instead of erasing it. How strange that shadow is not only absence, but structure, not only void, but shape. It has categories, gradients, boundaries that can be measured. It is as real as the object that casts it, and yet untouchable. Scientists have long studied shadows to understand the universe. Aristarchus of Samos, a Greek astronomer, measured the size of the Earth's shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse. By doing so, he estimated the distance to the sun and moon centuries before telescopes existed. A simple shadow, a simple observation, became a doorway to cosmic knowledge. Even today, shadows are tools. Astronomers watch the tiny dip in starlight as an exoplanet passes in front of its star. The planet itself is too far, too small to see. But its shadow, the faint dimming of starlight, reveals its presence. From shadows, we have discovered thousands of worlds, each circling a distant sun. On Earth, too, shadows are guides. The sundial, that ancient clock, relies entirely on the sun's steady shadow. As light moves, the shadow shifts across carved lines. It is time made visible by darkness. And in science labs, shadows tell us about waves. When light bends around an obstacle, it creates patterns called diffraction. The shadows ripple, not sharp, but fringed with delicate lines. From these shadows, we learn that light is both wave and particle, a duality that still humbles the mind. But beyond measurement and mathematics, shadows teach us about perception. Think of how your eyes see. They do not see light itself. They see contrast, edges, lines, shapes. Without shadow, there would be no edges, no separation. The world would be a flat field of brightness. It is shadow that carves reality into form. Painters know this intuitively. A sphere is not round until shadow curves along its side. A face is not alive until light and shade trace its cheekbones. Even the written word on this page is shadow, dark letters against a pale background. Without shadow, language itself would vanish. And yet, shadows are fragile. They shift with the slightest change in light. Move a candle, and every shadow in the room reshapes. Walk outside under clouds, and shadows soften, blurred by the scattering of sunlight. Science calls this diffusion. Your eyes call it gentleness. Think of twilight. At sunset, the sun's rays travel through thick layers of atmosphere. Shorter blue wavelengths scatter away, leaving long red and orange hues. Shadows stretch, but they are no longer sharp. They fade into one another, their edges kissed by color. This too is science and poetry. At night, shadows do not vanish. The moon, a reflector of sunlight, casts its own pale versions. Trees lay soft gray patterns across the ground. Even starlight, faint as it is, creates the thinnest shadows. Astronauts on the moon saw stars carve shadows on the lunar dust, delicate marks in the silence of space. But there are also shadows our eyes cannot see. Infrared shadows, ultraviolet shadows, radiation blocked or bent beyond human vision. Special cameras reveal them, glowing shapes and colors we cannot name. The universe is full of invisible shadows, playing their silent dance beyond our perception. And even in the smallest scales, shadows appear. Quantum experiments show particles casting interference patterns, light and dark bands revealing their dual nature. These are shadows not of objects, but of probabilities. Shadows of possibility itself. So the science of shadows tells us this: they are not nothing. They are not absence. They are evidence. Evidence of light, of form, of the hidden structure of reality. And yet, despite all precision, a shadow remains mysterious. It touches us, but cannot be touched. It shows us truth, but also hides it. It is both clarity and concealment. Sit with that thought now. Let it rest beside you. You are surrounded by shadows, seen and unseen. They are not here to trouble you. They are here to remind you that light exists, that matter exists, that you exist. And as your breathing slows, think of this simple truth. Every shadow you see tonight is the universe writing poetry in silence. Every shadow is a line of that poem, a dance step in the endless choreography between light and darkness. The science explains it, the heart feels it, and you, here resting, are part of it. Let go now. The shadows will remain. They will shift, they will lengthen, they will soften, but they will always return, faithful, patient, a quiet reminder that light is never far. Above us, the cosmos is never still. Stars burn, planets turn, moons drift. And in this ceaseless motion, shadows stretch across unimaginable distances. When we think of shadows, we imagine something small, a hand on a wall, a tree upon the ground. But in space, shadows are vast. They sweep across continents. They cover oceans. They turn day into night in the blink of a cosmic eye. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the sun. It is more than a ball of fire. It is the source of almost every shadow ever cast upon Earth. Its rays travel across 93 million miles, unhindered, until they meet us. And when something interrupts that path, a moon, a planet, even the thin curve of Earth itself, a cosmic shadow is born. Perhaps the most breathtaking of these is the solar eclipse. The moon, though so much smaller than Earth, drifts directly between us and the sun. For a few minutes, day collapses into night. Birds fall silent, temperatures drop, and a great shadow, the umbra of the moon, paints a path across Earth's surface. This path is narrow, sometimes only 100 miles wide, but within it, millions stand in awe. Above them, the sun is gone, replaced by a black disk ringed with fire. The corona, the sun's hidden atmosphere, glows like silver flame. It is a shadow not of absence, but of revelation. Outside that narrow umbra, others stand in the penumbra, seeing only a partial eclipse. The sun is still there, but bitten, shaped into crescents. Even here the light softens, the shadows sharpen into delicate patterns. Under trees, tiny crescents appear on the ground, as if the leaves themselves had become 1,000 pinhole cameras. How remarkable that a shadow so immense is also so fleeting. Totality may last only minutes, yet it leaves an impression that lasts a lifetime. For in those minutes, we feel the vastness of the cosmos, the precision of its dance. Earth, moon, and sun align in silent geometry, and shadow is the signature of that alignment. And then there is the lunar eclipse. This time, Earth itself stands between the sun and the moon. Our planet's shadow stretches into space, and the moon drifts through it slowly. At first, a dark bite appears upon its edge. Minute by minute, the bite grows. The moon dims, turns copper, and finally glows with a strange red light. Why red? Because Earth's atmosphere bends the sun's rays, scattering blue light away and letting only crimson slip through. That crimson curves into our shadow, painting the moon as though it were dipped in ember. It is called the blood moon, a shadow that is not black, but glowing with the color of fire. Even in darkness, light finds a way to remain. Eclipses are only the most dramatic of cosmic shadows. Every planet casts one, every moon. In the system of Jupiter, its many moons cross in front of one another, casting shifting patches of night upon the giant's swirling clouds. Astronomers with telescopes watch as these round shadows glide across Jupiter's face, as if the planet itself were a stage for celestial puppetry. Saturn, too, with its golden rings, plays with shadow. When the sun strikes at certain angles, the rings cast stripes of darkness onto the planet below, and sometimes the planet returns the gesture, casting its own shadow across the rings, carving a wedge of night through their glittering arc. It is a dance of reciprocity, your world and ring trading silence back and forth. Even the smallest rocks in space carry their shadows. Asteroids eclipse starlight for a brief moment as they drift across the heavens. By timing these occultations, these tiny shadows, astronomers map the shape and size of worlds too distant to see directly. The shadow becomes a tool, a message whispered from rock to earth. And then there is the shadow that Earth itself casts into the cosmos. It stretches behind us, a cone of night that reaches millions of miles. Within it, our satellites pass through darkness, even while the sun still shines upon Earth. Astronauts aboard the space station watch the planet's shadow race across oceans in minutes, turning day to night and night to day with each orbit. For them, a sunrise or sunset happens every 90 minutes, a ceaseless cycle of shadow. Cosmic shadows remind us that darkness is not emptiness. It is geometry. It is rhythm. It is proof of connection. Moon, earth, and sun are bound together by their shadows, woven into the same story. And just as shadows stretch across space, they stretch across time. Ancient people watched eclipses with awe and terror. Some believed the sun was devoured by dragons. Others saw the blood moon as a sign of fate. Yet even then, they knew shadows mattered. They carved records into stone, marking each eclipse, each cosmic alignment. From those marks, we trace the history of sky and earth. Today, we know the mathematics. We can predict eclipses centuries ahead. We can map the umbra, the penumbra, the entumbra. We can send spacecraft to watch shadows sweep across other worlds. And yet, when the sky darkens, when the stars appear at midday, we are still children of wonder. We are still silent, still moved, because shadow is more than physics. It is experience. So let yourself rest in that thought. The same shadow that cooled ancient fields falls across you today. The same alignment that awed our ancestors still writes its dark signature in the sky. Shadows are timeless. They are eternal companions of light, stretching across galaxies, whispering across centuries. As you drift tonight, imagine the moon slipping quietly into Earth's shadow. Imagine the corona of the sun glowing in a blackened sky. Imagine Jupiter's moons casting dark circles on swirling clouds. Each is a reminder that shadows are not small. They are grand. They are the silent music of the cosmos itself. Breathe slowly. Let the rhythm of orbit and eclipse settle into you. The planets move without hurry. The shadows fall without noise. And you, here, are part of that same cosmic dance. The shadows of space are vast, but they do not overwhelm. They cradle the stars. They sculpt the light, and they whisper always. You belong to this universe. You are a child of both light and shadow. Rest now. The cosmic shadows will keep their watch. They will move with patience, with silence, with endless grace. And when you open your eyes again, the dance will still be going on. The sun will still rise. The moon will still fall. The shadows will still stretch across the sky, marking time, marking eternity. Step away from the stars for a while. Come back down to the soil beneath your feet, to the forests, the rivers, the mountains, to the quiet places where shadows weave themselves into the fabric of life. Nature has always been a painter of shadows. The trees, the rocks, the flowing waters, all of them stretch, bend, and soften light, casting patterns that shift with every hour. You cannot walk a single path without stepping into their designs. Shadows are not accidents of nature. They are part of its rhythm, its beauty, its survival. Close your eyes and imagine a forest at dawn. The sun has just begun to rise. Its light filters through leaves, splitting into countless beams. Every branch carves its own shadow. The ground is alive with patterns, patches of light, patches of darkness, moving gently in the wind. It feels like walking through a living mosaic, the forest itself whispering stories in the language of shadow. Birds stir in those patterns. Some perch in shafts of light, warming their feathers. Others hide in the darker patches, safely unseen. Small creatures scurry across the ground, their bodies vanishing the moment they enter shadow. For them, darkness is protection. Light reveals, shadow conceals, and life depends on both. In the desert, shadows become precious. The sun is fierce, its heats are relentless. Every cactus, every rock casts a pool of shade. Beneath these tiny shelters, animals wait out the burning hours. A lizard lies still, its heartbeat slowed. A snake coils beneath a stone. Shadows here are survival, a gift from the landscape itself. By the ocean, the dance continues. Waves rise and fall, each crest casting a moving shadow upon the one behind it. Sunlight pierces the surface, but water bends it, scatters it, lays rippling shadows upon the sand below. Fish glide through this shifting tapestry, their bodies blending into the patterns. Predators vanish in darkness. Prey hides in stripes of shade. It is camouflage, woven not into skin alone, but into the water's own play of shadow. On coral reefs, this becomes an art form. The sun sparkles above, and every ripple of surface water casts a net of light and shadow below. Colors glow, but patterns shift constantly, a kaleidoscope in motion. Parrotfish and angelfish move like fragments of living light, their edges blurred by shadow. Without this shifting veil, they would stand exposed, too bright, too visible. The reef teaches us, shadow is not emptiness. It is shelter, soft armor, the kindness of disguise. High in the mountains, the story grows larger. Clouds drift across the sky, casting shadows that sweep over valleys and peaks. From a distance, you see entire landscapes fall into shade, then emerge again into brilliance. It is as if the earth itself were breathing light and darkness. Mountains at dawn cast enormous shadows that stretch for miles across plains. Climbers at the summit of Everest have watched the mountain's shadow rise into the sky itself, a pyramid of darkness touching the stratosphere. It is a reminder that shadows, though intangible, can feel more vast than stone. In grasslands, the same patterns shape life. Predators use shadows to stalk. A lion waits in the tall grass, its body blending with the moving shade of leaves. A hawk circles overhead, its shadow racing across the ground below. Animals scatter at its passing, for they know shadow carries warning. Life has learned to read the language of darkness, to trust its whispers as much as its silence. Even the smallest creatures understand this. Insects cling to the undersides of leaves, safe in the cool shadow. Spiders build their webs where light and dark intersect, catching what drifts through. Butterflies rest with wings closed, disguised in the mottled shade. A whole hidden world lives quietly, protected by shadows we barely notice. Think of rivers now. Trees along the bank cast reflections that ripple in the water. The current breaks the image, turning solid trunks into wavering ghosts. Fish below swim in and out of those moving bands. Herons stand in shadowed shallows, waiting still as statues until a flicker of movement breaks the pattern. Then the strike, sudden, precise, a dance of light, shadow, and hunger. Nature does not waste shadows. Every place where light is softened becomes a place of rest. Every sharp contrast becomes a signal or a warning. Shadows tell bees where nectar hides. They guide roots as they stretch downward. They cool soil, holding moisture, keeping seeds alive. An entire ecology depends on where shadows fall, but shadows in nature are not only practical, they are beautiful. Walk into a cave and see how stalactites carve patterns of darkness onto the walls. Stand beneath a tree and watch its leaves flicker like countless tiny shutters of light. Sit on a beach at sunset and see your shadow stretch until it merges with the horizon. These are small miracles, and they happen every day. Shadows also carry memory. Think of an old tree in the middle of a field. For centuries, its shade has sheltered animals, travelers, children at play. Generations have rested beneath it. Their stories may be forgotten, but the shadow is the same, a continuity of silence, a thread of protection through time. At night, nature's shadows soften. Moonlight spills across meadows, casting pale duplicates of trees and stones. Owls move like whispers between them. Deer step cautiously, their bodies blending with gray silhouettes. The night belongs to shadow. It is not frightening here. It is gentle, inviting rest. Even the stars above seem to paint faint shadows in the quiet places of Earth. Science explains all this with words like absorption, diffusion, refraction. But to the heart, it feels simpler. Shadows in nature are the Earth's lullaby, a rhythm of contrast that keeps balance alive. So breathe now. Imagine yourself sitting beneath a tree. The ground is cool with shade. The air carries the scent of grass. Above, leaves shift, casting shadows that dance slowly across your skin. You are safe here. You are part of the same design. Your breath rises and falls like the shadows around you, appearing, vanishing, appearing again. Nature does not hurry. Its shadows drift with wind and water. They move at the pace of clouds, the tilt of the sun, the turning of the earth. And tonight, you too may move at that pace, slow, unhurried, in rhythm with the quiet dance of shadows. Rest in this thought. Wherever you go, shadows follow. In forests, deserts, oceans, mountains. They are guides, protectors, painters of beauty. They are part of life's pattern, woven into every leaf and wave. And as you drift now, remember that you too belong to this fabric. You too cast a shadow, part of the great design. You do not need to control it. You only need to let it be. Let it stretch, let it rest, let it dissolve. Like the animals of forest and desert, trust the shadow. It is not against you. It is with you, always. Everywhere in nature, shadows fall without effort. On mountains, on rivers, on the curve of a leaf. But humans, restless and searching, saw in those shadows not only survival, but meaning, beauty, story. From the moment we painted on cave walls, we understood that light alone was not enough. Figures carved in brightness felt flat, lifeless, floating. But when a darker line was added, a smear of charcoal beneath the curve, suddenly the bison had weight. Suddenly, the hunter was stepping forward. Shadow gave depth, gave breath, gave the illusion of life. Close your eyes and picture a canvas, white, blank, empty. Now imagine a single stroke of light paint, yellow, glowing. It shines, but it floats without anchor. Now add a soft shadow, gray and gentle, beside it. Immediately, the form becomes real. The yellow is no longer just color. It is sunlight. It is flame. It is something you can almost touch. Painters have always known this. In the Renaissance, Artists studied the way shadows curved across flesh, the way folds of cloth darkened where they bent, the way a face emerged from half-light. They called it chiaroscuro, the marriage of bright and dark. Caravaggio mastered it. In his paintings, figures seemed to burst from darkness itself, a hand illuminated by a candle, a face caught at the edge of light. The rest dissolves into shadow, mystery waiting just beyond sight. Why does this move us so deeply? Because shadow feels true. We know the world is not pure brightness. We live in contrast. We trust the play of light and dark because it resembles our own perception. Even the eye itself works by shadow, retina responding not to steady light, but to the differences, the edges, the transitions. Step into a cathedral. High windows pour in shafts of light, but it is the shadows in the corners, the dim recesses of stone, that make the space feel sacred. Without darkness, the light would not glow. Without shadow, the architecture would not rise in majesty. It is the tension between brilliance and obscurity that creates awe. Think of sculpture. A statue in full light looks flat, its details washed away. But tilt the lamp, and shadows deepen the folds of cloth, the curls of hair, the hollow of eyes. Stone softens into flesh. The figure breathes again. Shadow is the sculptor's silent partner, finishing what hands alone cannot. Even music has its shadows. Notes are bright when they sound, but what gives them meaning is the silence between. The pause, the echo fading into quiet. Without silence, music would be endless noise. Without shadow, art would be endless glare. Poets too chase shadows. They write of dusk, of twilight, of the soft veil that hides and reveals. They use shadow as metaphor, for memory, for longing, for the secret places of the soul. To speak of light is simple. To speak of shadow is to speak of mystery. In Japanese aesthetics, there is a phrase, in praise of shadows. It tells us that beauty is not found in dazzling brightness, but in the muted glow, the softened edge, the subtle dimness. A lacquered bowl gleaming faintly in the half-light. A tatami room where shadows pool in corners. Here, shadow is not something to erase. It is part of elegance, a texture of serenity. Photography, our modern art of light, is also an art of shadow. A photograph without contrast feels empty, like a dream too pale to remember. But when shadows frame the subject, when light carves along an edge, suddenly emotion enters. A single shadow across a face can turn joy into mystery, innocence into power. The lens captures not only form, but feeling, and feeling lives in the shadows. Cinema too is sculpted by shadow. Film noir, with its Venetian blinds and smoky streets, taught us that what we do not see is as important as what we do. The monster half hidden in darkness, the hero's face lit on one side, concealed on the other. Shadow builds suspense, but also depth. It tells us there is always more beyond the frame. And consider theater. On stage, light reveals the actor, but it is the shadows that set the mood. A spotlight falls, the rest of the stage draped in night. The audience feels the isolation, the intensity, because shadow surrounds. Drama is born not only from action, but from the darkness holding it. Children too play with shadows. Hands before a lamp become animals, birds, dragons, dogs barking. The wall becomes a canvas of silhouettes. It is a primal delight to conjure form from absence, to make shadow dance. In those games, we glimpse the root of art itself, to transform the invisible into something felt, something alive. Even in writing, we live by shadow. The letters on this page are shadows against light. Without their darkness, the words vanish. Every poem, every story, every thought shared across centuries is carried by shadow on paper. So art, in all its forms, is the deliberate use of shadow, not to erase light, but to frame it, not to hide, but to reveal. The painter dips the brush in dark pigment so the brightness may sing. The photographer waits for sunset so the scene gains depth. The poet lingers at twilight because the heart listens more closely there. Shadows remind us that beauty is not perfection of light, but the dance of contrast. The subtle, the half-seen, the hinted. We do not need everything exposed. We long for suggestion, for mystery, for the space where imagination can breathe. Now picture yourself in a quiet gallery. The room is dim, lit only by small lamps. On the walls hang paintings, each alive with shadow. You walk slowly. You do not rush. Each step brings you deeper into silence. The shadows of the room, the shadows within the art, merge into one. You feel calm. You feel held. You feel as if the world is whispering. Beauty is not in the blaze, but in the hush. Let yourself rest in that gallery now. You do not need to remember the names, the dates, the schools of art. You only need to feel the softness of darkness, the way light carves against it. That is enough. That is art. That is shadow's gift. And as your breath slows, think of this simple truth. Every masterpiece, every song, every poem owes part of its power to shadow. It is the quiet partner, the silent dancer, the unseen brushstroke. Close your eyes. Let your own shadows surround you. They are not empty. They are frames for your light. They are part of your art, the art of being alive. Words have always loved shadows. From the earliest myths carved on stone to the quiet poems whispered before sleep, writers have turned to darkness and light as symbols too vast, too human to ever truly exhaust. In stories, shadows are never just absence. They are presences, characters, forces that shape the lives of heroes and wanderers. They are metaphors for fear, but also for memory, for longing, for the secret truths that live just beyond reach. Think of Shakespeare. In his plays, shadow is a language of mood. Out, out, brief candle, he writes in Macbeth. Life itself is a shadow, a flicker, a player upon a stage. The image is delicate, yet devastating. Our existence described not as substance, but as shadow's passing trace. In Hamlet, too, the prince speaks of the shadow of grief, the way sorrow casts itself across the soul long after the cause is gone. For Shakespeare, shadow is time itself, an echo, a ghost. Move forward to Edgar Allan Poe. His stories and poems drip with shadow, not only as setting Gothic mansions, moonless nights, but as state of mind. In The Raven, The shadow of the bird falls across the floor, a symbol of unending despair. It is not the raven's body that terrifies, but its silhouette, dark and silent, projected larger than life. Shadow becomes sorrow that will not leave. In Russian literature, Dostoevsky often wrote of the human soul as a landscape of light and shadow. Characters wander between illumination and darkness, between truth and deceit, between compassion and cruelty. He did not treat shadow as evil alone, but as complexity, as the parts of us we hesitate to show. To read his novels is to feel the weight of twilight in the human heart. Poets too have carried shadow in their lines. Emily Dickinson wrote of a certain slant of light that pressed upon the soul, its shadow heavy as despair. Her verses remind us that shadow is not only visual, but emotional. It is how the heart interprets the angle of the sun, how the mind responds to fleeting brightness. Robert Frost stood among snowy woods and felt the weight of dark branches, shadows leaning upon the path. They spoke to him of choices, of hesitation, of the quiet pull of endings. For him, shadow was not terror, but contemplation, the hush before decision. Even in myths, literature carried shadow as symbol. In Plato's famous allegory, humanity lives in a cave, seeing only shadows cast upon a wall. The figures they watch are not reality, but echoes of it. And yet to them, those shadows are truth. It is a warning and a question. How often do we mistake shadow for substance, illusion for reality? Folklore too lingers in shadow, stories of spirits, of figures glimpsed at twilight, of travelers who vanish into darkness. These tales remind us of the unknown, the way shadow becomes doorway. Not every threshold is lit. Sometimes the path is dim, and literature teaches us to walk it with imagination. Modern writers have not abandoned shadow. T.S. Eliot spoke of the shadow between idea and reality, between motion and act. He named shadow as the space where intention falters, where dreams dissolve. For him, shadow was not only visual, but existential. It was the gap between what we hope and what we manage to become. In magical realism, authors let shadow blur into wonder. Gabriel Garcia Marquez filled his towns with twilight, streets where memory and myth mingle in half-light. Shadows there are not frightening, but enchanting reminders that the ordinary is always brushing against the mysterious. And in children's stories, shadow often becomes a playful companion. Think of Peter Pan, who loses his shadow, chasing it as if it were another child. The image is whimsical, but profound too. What would it mean to be without your shadow? What part of yourself would be missing? Here, shadow is identity, connection, a piece of the self too easily overlooked. Why do writers return to shadows again and again? Because shadow is versatile. It can mean danger, a figure lurking unseen. It can mean comfort, a place of rest at noon. It can mean memory, an outline left behind. Or it can mean mystery, the part of life we cannot explain. Literature thrives on ambiguity, and shadow is ambiguity made visible. It is never one thing alone. It always suggests more. When a poet writes of shadow, we lean closer. We know there is something hidden, something waiting just beyond the words. Imagine now a library at night. The lamps are few, casting pools of golden light upon wooden tables. Between those pools stretch shadows, soft and endless. The books themselves seem alive in that half-dark. Every spine a line of shadow, every page a meeting of black letters on pale paper. The library whispers, all literature is born of shadow. Words are darkness shaped into meaning, framed by light. So rest here in that library. You do not need to read aloud. You do not need to chase each reference. It is enough to feel how language itself bends toward shadow, how stories gather in twilight. From Shakespeare's stage to Poe's chamber, from Dickinson's slant of light to Marcus's enchanted dusk, writers have always trusted shadow, and you can trust it too. It will not harm, it will not overwhelm. It will only remind you. What you cannot fully see is often what your soul most longs to know. Breathe softly, let the words fade like dusk. Let the shadows of literature settle over you like a blanket. You are safe in their company. You are part of their story. And as you drift, remember, every poem, every play, every novel that ever lived was written in the ink of shadow. Shadows are everywhere, yet not every culture sees them in the same way. What is to one person a symbol of fear, to another becomes a sign of peace. What is to one society an omen, to another is simply balance. To listen to the world's stories of shadow is to listen to the heart of humanity. Our hopes, our fears, our reverence for the mystery that lies between light and dark. In the West, shadow often carried the weight of duality. Light was truth, darkness was ignorance. From the Bible's earliest lines, "Let there be light," was not only about illumination, but about goodness, creation, the very essence of life. What then of shadow? It became the opposite, the hiding place of sin, the cloak of the unknown. Medieval cathedrals played with this language. Stained glass windows spilled light like jewels, casting colored shadows across stone. To step into those shadows was not to step away from God, but to step into a holy mystery. Here, shadow was not evil, but sacred depth. Light dazzled, shadow hushed. Together, they shaped the sacred experience. Across the world in Japan, shadow took on another role entirely. In traditional aesthetics, darkness is not absence but atmosphere. A lacquered bowl gleams faintly in dim light. Tatami rooms are softened by shade. Here beauty is not found in brightness, but in subtle glow. Junichiro Tanezaki's essay in praise of shadows celebrates the quiet dignity of dimness. Shadow, in this vision, is patience. It is the pause that allows reflection, the hush that makes space for thought. To sit in such a room is to feel that shadow does not conceal beauty. It reveals it slowly, as though whispering instead of shouting. It is a reminder that some truths arrive gently, not in a blaze of light, but in a soft murmur of darkness. In India, shadows carried the language of karma and spirit. The Sanskrit word chaya means both shade and reflection. In some myths, a goddess herself was born as a shadow, an echo of the sun god's wife. This shadow wife became mother of planets, giver of cosmic cycles. Here shadow was not death, but birth, not ending, but beginning. Hindu epics speak of warriors who confront their shadows, spirits shaped by their own doubts and deeds. To face the shadow is to face the self. In yoga and meditation, shadow is not shunned. It is recognized, accepted, embraced as part of wholeness. In African traditions, shadow often represents life force. Among the Akan of West Africa, the word sunsum means both spirit and shadow. A person without a shadow was thought to have lost their essence. Children would play by stepping into each other's shadows, as though touching the very soul. Here, shadow is not a threat. It is proof of vitality. In other regions, shadows connected the living to ancestors. When someone passed away, their shadow lingered, a reminder that the person's spirit still moved among the family. To see your shadow stretch long at sunset was to feel the presence of those who came before you, walking with you into the evening. Among indigenous peoples of the Americas, shadows often carried stories of transformation. The Navajo tell of Coyote, who plays tricks with light and shadow, teaching humans humility. Other tribes speak of animals who left their shadows upon the earth as marks of creation. Rock art and cave paintings echo these tales, silhouettes carved in stone to remind future generations of the dance between presence and absence. In Islamic tradition, shadow is also layered with meaning. The Quran speaks of shade as mercy, a gift from God to the weary. In hot lands, a shadow is life itself, a place of rest, a sanctuary for the body. To dwell in shadow is not to hide from light, but to receive balance. Here, shadow is not a metaphor for evil. It is compassion, a reminder that divine care exists even in the simplest shelter. And what of myths of Europe? There, shadows sometimes carried fear. Tales of shadow people, dark figures glimpsed at night, haunted villages and campfires. Yet even these fears reveal something deeper. Shadows became projections of the unknown, our mind's way of shaping mystery into form. They taught caution, but also wonder. For every shadow that frightened, another shadow comforted. The cool shade of a tree, the protective shadow of a home. Across cultures, shadow becomes what each society most values or most fears. In bright lands where sun scorches, shadow is blessing. In cold lands where long winters reign, shadow is loneliness. In spiritual traditions, shadow is the soul. In philosophies, shadow is illusion. And yet, beneath the differences, a single truth whispers. Everywhere, shadow means relation. It means light has touched matter. It means life is present. Whether sacred, feared, or cherished, shadow proves existence. It is the echo of being. Pause here. Imagine yourself walking through these cultures. You stand in a cathedral, light streaming through colored glass. You sit in a Japanese tea room, shadows pooling quietly in corners. You walk in the desert of Arabia, resting gratefully in a patch of shade. You stand in an African village, watching children chase each other's shadows at dusk. Different lands, different languages, but the same hush, the same presence, the same silent dance of light and dark. Shadows across cultures remind us that we are united by contrast. No matter how far apart, human beings have always looked at the same twilight and felt both fear and wonder. We have written myths, built temples, painted poems upon the walls of caves, all because shadows stirred something in us. They still do. When you watch your own shadow tomorrow, know that countless generations have done the same. Know that you are part of a lineage of wonder, people who saw in darkness not just absence, but meaning. Breathe gently now. Let the shadows of many cultures settle around you like a quilt. They are not heavy, they are not sharp, they are soft, woven of reverence and imagination. Rest beneath them. You are safe. You are part of their story. And as you drift, remember this. No matter the culture, no matter the century, shadows have always been more than what they seem. They are reminders that life is not only light, but the gentle, necessary presence of dark. Long before books, before temples, before cities rose from stone, human beings lived in a world where night was absolute. No lamps, no streetlights, no hum of electricity, only fire, only stars, only the slow turning of the moon. And when the fire faded, when the moon hid, darkness became complete. Shadows merged into one vast shroud, and in that shroud, fear was born. Imagine yourself as one of those early humans. The day has ended, the sun has sunk, the air grows cold, your fire crackles low, a fragile circle of light is surrounded by endless black. Every flicker of the flame casts moving shadows on the cave wall. They dance, elongated, unpredictable. Are they spirits? Are they enemies? Or are they only your own body, reflected larger than life? Your mind does not know. It invents. It fills the dark with possibility, with danger, with gods and ghosts. This is the ancient fear of darkness, not simply fear of what is, but fear of what might be. Darkness has always invited imagination. The rustle of leaves at noon is only wind, but at midnight it becomes a predator. A shadow by day is harmless, but at night a shadow becomes an intruder. The same tree that shelters you in daylight casts a silhouette that resembles a monster at dusk. The same cave that protects you from rain fills with whispers after sunset. Fear does not come from shadow itself, but from the unknown it conceals. Darkness hides detail the eye cannot confirm, and when vision fails, imagination rushes in. Anthropologists believe that fear of darkness was once a survival tool. In the night, predators hunted. Lions moved unseen on the savanna. Wolves padded silently among the trees. To be afraid was to be alert. To stay by the fire was to stay alive. Our ancestors survived because they respected shadow. They listened to its warnings, but survival fear soon became myth. The unknown was not only predator, it became spirit. Cultures told stories of demons who moved in darkness, ghosts who hid in shadows. Folk tales warned children, do not wander from the fire, or the dark will take you. Even today, echoes of that fear remain. Children hesitate to sleep without a nightlight. Adults avoid unlit alleys. We rationalize, we explain, but still our hearts quicken in darkness. Ancient fear lingers in modern blood. Religions across the world captured this duality. Light was divine, darkness was dangerous, but darkness was also sacred. In Egyptian myth, the sun god Ra sailed each night through the underworld, battling the serpent of chaos in shadow. Darkness was trial, but also renewal. The sun could rise only after conquering the night. In Norse legend, wolves chased the sun and moon, hoping to swallow their light. Eclipses were moments of terror when shadow consumed the sky. Communities banged drums, lit fires, shouted prayers to drive the darkness back. Here, shadow was threat, but also drama, a stage for cosmic struggle. And in many traditions, death itself was described as a shadowed realm. Not pure nothingness, but twilight, a land of half-light where souls wandered between presence and absence. The Greeks called it Hades. The Mesopotamians spoke of a dark underworld where shadows of ancestors lingered. Fear of night became fear of death, and shadow became the image of mortality. Yet the ancient fear was never only terror. There was awe in it too. Step into darkness, and you feel small. Step into starlight, and you feel infinite. The shadow of night taught humility. It told humans they were not in control. It reminded them of their fragility, but also of their wonder. Consider the sky itself. When stars appeared, they were lights framed by shadow. The black of night was not only emptiness, it was the canvas on which constellations were drawn. Without the shadow of night, no myth of Orion, no story of the Great Bear, no guides for sailors crossing oceans. Shadow frightened, but it also guided. Fear gave way to navigation, to story, to art. Psychologists today still recognize shadow as metaphor for fear. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow self, the part of us we avoid. Fear of darkness in this sense is fear of our own hidden nature. What lies in us that we cannot see? What waits in the corners of the mind? The ancient fear has not vanished. It has simply moved inward. But even here, shadow carries potential. Jung wrote that to embrace the shadow is to become whole, that what we fear when accepted becomes strength. Darkness within us is not absence. It is possibility. It is the unknown waiting to be seen. So the ancient fear of darkness was never just superstition. It was the beginning of imagination. Without darkness, we would not have invented fire. We would not have told stories. We would not have searched the sky for light. Fear made us dream. Fear made us curious. Fear made us human. Now rest in this thought. Fear of darkness is natural. It has lived in every generation. It whispers still in every heart. But it does not need to control you. It can soothe you if you let it. For darkness is also safety. It is the soft room where you close your eyes. It is the shadow of blankets around your body. It is the pause that allows sleep to come. The ancient fear kept us alive. Now it keeps us tender. When you lie in the quiet shadow of your room, know that you are carrying a memory older than language. Know that you are part of an unbroken line of dreamers who faced the night and found within it both danger and beauty. So breathe. Let fear soften into wonder. Let shadow cradle you as it once cradled our ancestors. Darkness is not only emptiness, it is history. It is imagination. It is the place where life begins again. Rest now. The ancient fear can fade. The ancient wonder can remain. And you, safe in this quiet hour, can drift into the very shadow that once frightened, now comforting, always whispering. Since the beginning of story, humans have gathered around fire, and wherever there was fire, there were shadows, flickering, stretching, moving across stone walls. Perhaps it was inevitable that those shadows would become characters themselves. Not only silent shapes, but spirits, beings, voices in the dark. Myth and folklore carried them forward, generation after generation, until shadow was not only something we saw, but something we believed in. In many cultures, the shadow was thought to be the soul. To harm a shadow was to harm the person. To steal a shadow was to steal their spirit. Among certain indigenous peoples, shadows were called second bodies, delicate doubles that followed us faithfully. They were proof of life, but also fragile. Lose your shadow, they said, and you lose yourself. Children grew up with tales like these. Be careful where you step. Be careful where you rest. Your shadow must remain whole, or danger will follow. Such stories taught reverence for the unseen, for the mysterious, for the fragile connection between body and spirit. In European folklore, shadows often became ghosts. Travelers told of shadow people, dark figures glimpsed at the edge of vision, not solid, not fully there, but present enough to stir fear. They appeared in bedrooms, at crossroads, in lonely fields. Some said they were souls trapped between worlds. Others said they were omens, heralds of death or misfortune. And yet, in other tales, shadow figures were guardians, ancestors who returned to watch over families, protectors who kept the living safe. Fear and comfort lived side by side, woven together in darkness. In Africa, many traditions held that the shadow was inseparable from a person's life force. Among the Zulu, to lose one's shadow in a dream was a warning of illness. Among the Yoruba, the shadow was linked to destiny, a spiritual twin guiding choices unseen. Here, shadow was not only presence, it was guidance. It whispered the path, even when the road ahead was dark. In Asia, folklore often played with shadow as illusion. Chinese shadow puppetry, delicate figures of leather pressed against screens, lit by lantern glow, turned shadow into theater. Here darkness was not frightening. It was entertainment, art that delighted both children and elders. Through shadows, heroes fought dragons, lovers whispered vows, gods descended to earth. An entire world was built from silhouettes. But in the same lands, other stories told of restless spirits. In Japan, yokai and ghosts often appeared in twilight, their forms half hidden, their presence known only by the shadow they cast. Legends of women with long black hair, of faceless men, of shapes lingering at the edge of rice fields. The Japanese word kage means both shadow and light's trace. It suggests something left behind, an echo of being. These tales blurred comfort and unease, teaching listeners that what lives in shadow cannot always be trusted, but cannot be ignored either. The Middle East, too, carried stories of shadows. In Arabian folklore, jinn were said to appear as shifting figures, half light, half dark, visible in the corner of the eye. They moved like shadows detached from their hosts, sometimes offering gifts, sometimes bringing mischief. To live in such a world was to accept that shadow was alive, that every dark corner might hold another will, another voice. And then there were the fireside tales, the ones whispered not in temples, but in homes, by grandparents to children. Stories of wandering souls who left shadows on walls long after their bodies had gone. Stories of animals whose shadows turned into people at night. Stories of hunters who followed a shadow too far into the forest and never returned. These were warnings, but also lullabies. They carried rhythm, mystery, comfort, and repetition. Children fell asleep listening, their own shadows curled against the wall. Myth and folklore did not only frighten, they comforted. For if shadows could be ghosts, they could also be guides. A lost traveler might see a shadow on the path ahead, leading them safely home. A mother might believe her child's shadow carried blessings. In some tales, the shadow was the first to cross into death, scouting the way, ensuring the soul was not alone. Why did humans tell these stories? Because shadow is ambiguous. It invites meaning. It can be threat or friend, omen or blessing, monster or guardian. It shifts with the culture, with the need, with the season. It becomes what we most fear and what we most desire. And so folklore wrapped shadow in endless costumes. Sometimes black dogs with glowing eyes, sometimes faceless wanderers, sometimes angels hidden in twilight. Each story reflected the same truth. Shadows are never empty. They are always filled with imagination, with belief, with memory. Even today, we carry these tales within us. A creak at night, a moving shape in the corner. Our minds leap to folklore, to ghosts, to omens. We know science, we know shadows are only absence of light, and yet the old stories whisper still. They remind us that part of being human is to see more than what is there. Now, as you listen, let yourself drift back to those ancient fires. Hear the voices around the circle. See the shadows moving on the walls. Feel how fear and wonder mingle together. The stories are not meant to solve, but to soothe, not to explain, but to remind us that even in darkness, we are not alone. Your own shadow rests beside you now. It carries no omen. It casts no curse. It simply waits, as it always has, silent companion, faithful witness. Breathe slowly. Let the myths soften into dreams. Let folklore wrap you like a blanket. The shadows are not threatening. They are story itself, the quiet tale the universe tells when the fire grows low and night grows deep. Rest now. The shadows of myth will keep watch. They have done so for countless generations, and they will do so still. Dreams arrive when the world grows quiet. Eyes close, breath deepens, and the mind begins its secret work. Within that hidden theater, light and shadow perform again, not cast upon walls or valleys, but upon the screen of thought itself. Shadows of memory, shadows of desire, shadows of fear, all drifting across the stage of sleep. Think of your own dreams. How often do they carry dimness? A hallway half lit, a figure obscured, a room where corners melt into gray. Dreams rarely unfold in steady brightness. Instead, they shimmer between clarity and blur, between light that reveals and shadow that conceals. Why is this? Because the dreaming mind does not demand precision. It thrives on suggestion, on fragment, on silhouette. Shadows and dreams are symbols, spaces for the subconscious to speak without needing words. Psychologists have long studied this. Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, where shadows of forbidden wishes slipped past the guard of waking reason. Carl Jung saw in dreams the archetype of shadow itself, the hidden self we do not show. In dreams, this shadow takes form, a stranger, a pursuer, a twin. It frightens, but it also teaches. To face it is to know yourself more fully, and yet science too finds shadows in the brain's patterns. During REM sleep, neurons fire as if awake, but without the anchor of external light. The brain invents its own illumination, and where there is invented light, there is invented shadow, a neural echo of the same contrast that shapes the outer world. Cultures too have noticed this. Ancient Greeks believed dreams were messages, shadows of gods visiting the mind. Egyptians kept dream interpreters, reading meaning from every dark corner. In many traditions, a shadow in a dream was not only an image, but a sign, a visitor from spirit, an ancestor, a truth hidden in twilight. Think of the dreams that linger. They are rarely the ones filled only with brightness. It is the dim hallway, the half-seen figure, the shifting silhouette that stays with you upon waking. The mind remembers the mystery, the unresolved. Shadow imprints more deeply than clarity, perhaps because it leaves room for us to wonder, to interpret, to weave our own meaning into the dream. And yet shadows in dreams are not always fearful. They can be gentle, comforting, like the shade of a tree in memory. You may dream of resting in darkness, of walking through twilight fields, of standing in moonlight, soft enough to feel like a lullaby. Here, shadow is not menace. It is sanctuary, the subconscious whispering, "You may rest." Some artists have credited dreams with their greatest creations. Mary Shelley dreamt of a shadowy figure and awoke with the seed of Frankenstein. Samuel Taylor Coleridge dreamed the fragments of Kubla Khan. Paul McCartney heard a melody in sleep, a song born of shadowed mind. Dreams provide what waking cannot, a canvas free of boundaries, where shadow suggests new forms, new music, new words. Even nightmares, though heavy, carry purpose. The shadow in the dream, the pursuer, the storm, the faceless figure, is often the mind's way of rehearsing fear. By facing it in shadow, we prepare to face it in life. Our ancestors who dreamt of predators woke more alert to danger. We who dream of anxieties wake more aware of what weighs within us. The shadow of the dream is both rehearsal and release. Science tells us that dreams may help memory consolidate. Experiences of the day are replayed, filed into long-term storage. But memory does not arrive as clear film. It arrives in fragments, some lit, some dark. Shadows of moments blur together, and we call this a dream. Our sleeping mind paints not with light alone, but with shadow, because shadow is what makes memory vivid. Imagine yourself dreaming now. You walk through a forest. The path is dim, lit by shafts of moonlight. Shadows of branches crisscross the ground. You do not know where the path leads, but you are not afraid. Each shadow feels like part of the journey. You keep walking, soothed by the rhythm of light and dark, until the dream dissolves into sleep, deeper still. There is something profoundly human in how we accept shadow in dreams. In waking life, we may fear darkness, but in dreams, we surrender. We let shadows carry us through stories we would never invent awake. It is trust, a kind of surrender to the subconscious. And often, when we wake, we find we have learned something, even if we cannot name it. So tonight, as you drift, do not resist the shadows of your dreams. They are not there to harm. They are teachers, companions, messages from the part of you that lives beyond daylight. Let your eyes close. Let the images come softly. If a shadow appears, welcome it. It is part of you. It is the night speaking in your own language. Breathe slowly. The shadows of dreams are waiting, gentle and patient. They will carry you deeper, past memory, past thought, into rest. And when morning comes, whether you remember or not, the shadows will have done their work. They will have guided you through the hidden corridors of the mind, quietly, faithfully, as they always have. Memories are shadows, not the full light of what once was, not the solid presence of a moment alive, but the outline it leaves behind. Every day you live becomes light, and every day you remember becomes shadow. The form remains, but softened, blurred, tinged with the distance of time. Close your eyes and think of a childhood afternoon, the sun high, your shadow stretching small beneath you. Perhaps you were running, perhaps laughing, perhaps sitting under a tree. The details may have faded, the exact words spoken, the smell of the air, the sound of footsteps, but the feeling remains, like a shadow across your heart. Not the event itself, but its shape, its impression. This is how memory works. The brain does not keep every detail. It keeps the silhouette, the essential outline, and lets the rest dissolve. Like shadows on a wall, memories are real enough to touch us, but never solid enough to hold. Scientists tell us that memory is reconstructive. Each time you recall, the brain rebuilds, reshaping the image slightly. Like light passing at a new angle, the shadow shifts. This is why memories feel certain, yet change with time. The shadow is faithful, but never exact. Psychologists call some memories flashbulb memories, moments of intensity burned into the mind. But even these, over years, become shadows too. Vivid edges blur, colors fade. The core remains, but softened, like twilight around a flame. There is beauty in this, because shadows of memory allow us to carry the past without its full weight. If every detail stayed bright, the mind would drown. Shadow gives distance, gentleness, a way to hold yesterday without being consumed. Think of grief. At first, the memory of loss is sharp, lit with unbearable clarity. Every moment of absence burns. But as time moves, the memory turns to shadow. It is still there, faithful, silent, aching, but softened. You can sit with it. You can even find comfort in it. The shadow of memory becomes companionship, not only pain. Artists often write of memory in terms of shadow. Marcel Proust spoke of moments suddenly illuminated by scent or taste, but always tinged by the dimness of time. Poets write of yesterday as twilight, half bright, half dark. The novelist's page is filled with characters chasing shadows of the past, seeking clarity that never quite arrives. Literature teaches us that memory is not replay, but reverie. It is not light preserved. It is shadow reborn. And in daily life, you see this truth too. An old photograph, faces frozen, smiles caught. Yet the photo itself is shadow. It is not the laugh, not the warmth of touch, not the heartbeat of that day. It is only the outline. Looking at it, you feel both presence and absence. It comforts and aches at once. Music works the same. A song you once loved brings shadows of who you were. The room where you listened, the person beside you, the season, the mood. The music plays, but what you hear most deeply is the shadow of memory rising with it. Even places carry these shadows. Walk into a childhood home. The furniture may be gone, the walls painted new, and yet the shadow of memory still clings to corners. The air seems filled with echoes of footsteps, with whispers of voices long silent. Memory turns empty rooms into sacred space. There are also collective shadows of memory, stories entire cultures carry. Wars, celebrations, tragedies, triumphs. Generations not yet born still walk in those shadows. Cities rebuilds, but monuments of memory remain, casting their silhouettes across time. We inherit these shadows without choosing them. They shape our sense of belonging, our sense of history. But memory shadows are not only heavy, they can be gentle, like the shade of a tree on a warm day. A grandmother's kitchen, its scents lingering though the house is gone. A friend's laughter, still ringing though years have passed. These shadows soothe. They remind us that what was beautiful once is never entirely lost. It lingers quietly, like dusk on the edge of evening. Science has a name for forgetting too. It calls it decay, interference, erosion of traces. But perhaps it is simply shadow deepening. The memory has not vanished. It has only slipped further into twilight. We cannot see its details, but we can still feel its presence, like standing in a darkened room. You know the furniture remains, though you cannot describe it in detail. So it is with memory. Shadow holds the form, even when light has faded. And what of dreams of memory? Sometimes the past returns at night, shadows of childhood blending with shadow of dream. We walk again through streets long gone. We speak to those who have passed. In dreams, memory's shadow becomes alive again, not exact, but real enough to stir the heart. We wake with tears, with smiles, with longing, and for a moment, the shadow feels like light again. Now pause. Think of one memory you hold dear. It may be faint, a mere outline. It may be strong, colored still by vivid emotion. Whatever it is, see it as a shadow resting gently within you. It does not demand. It does not burden. It simply waits, quiet and faithful. Your memories are not lost. They have only softened. They travel with you like shadows at dusk, always changing, but always near. So rest now. Let the shadows of memory surround you. They are not heavy. They are not frightening. They are your companions, your reminders, your proof that life has been lived, that beauty has touched you, that love has shaped you. And as sleep deepens, trust this: memory will always remain, not as blinding light, but as gentle shadow, enough to comfort, enough to remind, enough to carry you forward into tomorrow's light. History is not only written in stone and parchment, it is also written in shadow. From the first moments humanity looked upward and saw darkness move with the sun, we learned to measure, to worship, to build, to dream. Shadows became our first clocks, our first calendars, our first architects of sacred space. They shaped the rhythms of civilization, quietly guiding us through centuries. Imagine an ancient person standing in an open field. The sun rises. Their shadow stretches long across the earth. As the day grows, the shadow shortens. By noon, it hides beneath their feet. Then it grows again, pointing in the opposite direction. The pattern repeats, day after day, season after season. Soon they realize the shadow is a teacher. It tells time, it shows direction, it whispers of the turning world. From this realization came the sundial, a simple stick planted in the ground, its shadow moving in a circle. Marks were carved around it, lines etched into stone. Now hours could be counted, now meetings could be kept, now rituals could follow precise rhythm. Civilization itself grew on the back of shadow. Egyptians raised obelisks, tall, slender towers of stone reaching toward the sky. More than monuments, they were instruments. Their shadows tracked the passage of the sun, dividing day into morning and afternoon. Priests observed carefully, recording the length of shadow to mark seasons, to predict floods of the Nile, to guide planting and harvest. An entire society's survival depended on watching shadows, and these obelisks spoke to the sacred too. Their peaks caught first light at dawn, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across temple courtyards. To walk in those shadows was to step into divine presence. Light and shadow together became prayer. In Mesopotamia, temples called ziggurats rose step by step toward the sky. As the sun moved, their giant shadows spread across cities. The people below saw in those shadows the presence of gods, the protection of unseen powers. To live within a temple's shadow was to live within blessing. The Greeks refined the sundial, turning shadow into geometry. They mapped its angles, studied its variations, and discovered that shadows changed not only through the day, but through the year. Winter shadows stretched longer. Summer shadows crouched short. From these differences came the first calendars, the knowledge of solstice and equinox. Festivals were timed, navigation guided, all by the patience of shadow. And then came Rome, with its great sundials carved in marble, its obelisks carried from Egypt, its plazas designed so shadows would fall across precise lines. The largest sundial of all used an obelisk more than 100 feet tall. At noon, its shadow fell upon a marker that aligned with the emperor's birthday. In this way, shadow became politics, a symbol of power. The sun and its darkness were woven into empire. But not only time was measured, shadow shaped sacred architecture across the world. At Stonehenge, massive stones align with solstice. On the longest day, the rising sun casts shadows through arches of stone, falling exactly where ancient builders intended. A calendar of shadow and light, a temple of sky carved upon earth. In Chichen Itza, the Great Pyramid of Kukulkan performs a miracle of shadow each equinox. As the sun sets, triangular shadows fall along the steps, forming the image of a serpent slithering down the pyramid's side. The god descends in shadow, welcomed by thousands of watchers. Architecture becomes theater, light and darkness the actors. In India, temples were built with gnomons, pillars that cast shadows to mark astronomical events. At Konark Sun Temple, wheels of stone double as sundials. Their shadows mark hours with astonishing precision, centuries before mechanical clocks. To stand there is to feel how shadow itself was worshipped as language of the divine. Even in Christian cathedrals, shadow shaped the sacred. Builders aligned windows and arches so that at certain times of year, light would fall in perfect patterns, casting shadows in the form of crosses, roses, circles of eternity. Believers saw these shadows as miracles of faith, though they were also miracles of design. Islamic architecture too embraced shadow. Courtyards of mosques were built to welcome shade, cool refuge from the sun. Intricate screens called mashrabia filtered light into delicate patterns, casting lacework shadows upon walls and floors. Prayer was offered not in harsh light, but in the gentleness of patterned shade. Here, shadow was mercy, a daily reminder of balance. History also records fear in shadows. Eclipses terrified ancient peoples. When the sun vanished, when day turned suddenly to night, it seemed the world itself was ending. Drums were beaten, fires lit, chants raised to chase the shadow away. Though science now explains, the awe remains. The shadow of eclipse is history's reminder that we are small beneath the sky, but perhaps the most enduring role of shadow in history was its power to unite. Communities gathered to watch its movements, to mark festivals, to build temples aligned with it. A shared shadow became shared time, shared meaning. Civilizations rose in its rhythm, and history itself, as we tell it now, is shadow. We cannot step back into the past. We see only its outline, its imprint, its echo upon the present. Wars, kings, revolutions. Their details blur, but their shadows remain, shaping how we live today. Pause here. Imagine standing at dawn in an ancient city, streets quiet, temples tall. The first rays of sun strike stone. Shadows stretch across the plaza, exactly as they did thousands of years ago. You are watching time itself unfold, the same dance observed by generations long gone. These shadows are history made visible. They tell you when to plant, when to gather, when to celebrate. They tell you where to build, how to pray, how to mark the passing of years. You are living in the same rhythm that has carried humanity since the first fire. And tonight, as you listen, remember, history is not gone. Its shadow surrounds you still. Every building you enter, every clock you read, every calendar you follow is an inheritance of shadow. You live in its gift, quiet, constant, woven through centuries. So rest now. Let the shadows of history settle over you like an old, soft cloak. They are not heavy. They are not harsh. They are memory turned gentle, guidance turned silent. They remind you that you belong to a story far older than yourself, a story measured not only in words, but in the faithful dance of light and dark. Sleep within that story. Let the long shadow of history carry you into dreams. It has always been here. It will always remain. Shadows are ancient, yet they have never stopped evolving with us. They walked beside us in caves, marked our hours on stone, guided the temples and cathedrals. And even now, in an age of satellites, telescopes, microscopes, and machines, shadows remain. We study them with new tools. We capture them with new lenses. We use them to search for worlds unseen, to reveal the invisible, to ask questions that light alone cannot answer. Think first of astronomy. Our ancestors looked to the sky and watched shadows fall across the moon. Today, astronomers do the same, but with instruments more delicate than the eye. When a planet far away passes in front of its star, the light dims just slightly. This is called a transit. It is, in essence, a shadow. The planet itself cannot be seen, but its passing casts a thin veil, a flicker of darkness across starlight. From that flicker, we measure its size, its orbit, sometimes even the breadth of its atmosphere. Thousands of exoplanets, or worlds circling distant suns, have been found not by seeing them directly, but by reading their shadows. How extraordinary that something so small, so subtle, can reveal entire worlds. Shadows become messengers, bridges between stars and human minds. Now look closer to Earth. In physics, shadows reveal the nature of light itself. When light passes around an obstacle, its shadow fringes with delicate bands. We call this diffraction. The shadow is not hard-edged, but rippled like water. From such ripples, we learned that light is a wave. Yet in other experiments, light behaves as particles, tiny quanta streaming in straight lines. The shadow is both precise and soft, both absence and wave. It reveals contradiction, mystery, the dual nature of reality itself. Even the famous double-slit experiment is a study of shadow. Particles of light or matter create patterns of bright and dark on a screen. The dark bands are shadows of possibility, interference of waves unseen. In those shadows lies the puzzle of quantum physics. Shadows are no longer only visual, they are probabilities, absence that holds truth. Biology too looks to shadows. There is a theory called the shadow biosphere. It asks, what if life exists on Earth that we cannot see? Not invisible in the sense of ghosts, but invisible to our detection. Life with different chemistry, different building blocks, casting shadows in the data we collect. If such a biosphere exists, it would mean we are not alone, even here. Our world may be richer than light reveals. Once again, shadow suggests possibility. Photography, perhaps more than any modern art, is built on shadow. The very word photography means writing with light. But what is written without shadow? Nothing. The contrast of bright and dark carves form into the image. A portrait glows because half the face is shadowed. A landscape breathes because mountains fall into dusk. Even the smallest photograph, letters on a page, a child's drawing, is carried by shadow on surface. Every pixel is a balance between brightness and shade. Cinematographers, too, are masters of shadow. They speak of low-key lighting, of silhouettes, of chiaroscuro reborn on screen. Horror films use shadow to build tension. Romantic films use it to soften faces. Science fiction uses it to hint at the unknown. Even in a world glowing with artificial light, directors turn to shadow to move the heart. Technology itself bends shadows to purpose. Engineers study how shadows fall to design solar panels that catch more light. Architects design buildings where shade cools cities. Even in medicine, shadows heal. Think of the X-ray. It is nothing more than a shadow image, light of higher frequency passing through flesh, stopped by bone. The dark outline on film is your skeleton's shadow. CT scans, MRIs, all rely on shadow, contrast between what light passes through and what it cannot. Doctors read shadows to glimpse life inside. And what of the digital world? Even in virtual space, we render shadows. Without them, images feel flat, unreal. Shadows in computer graphics create depth, believability. Gamers and designers know this. A world without shadow fails to convince. The mind trusts the scene only when light and shade dance together. Artificial intelligence too plays with shadow. Neural networks trained on vision learn to read edges, patterns of contrast. They find faces in photographs, not by seeing the person, but by reading the shadows of features. A shadow beneath the nose, a shadow under the eyes. From these, machines reconstruct identity. Shadow becomes data, the bridge between pixels and perception. Even space exploration relies on shadow. When Apollo astronauts stood on the moon, they measured the depth of craters by watching how shadows fell. Robotic rovers on Mars do the same today. Their cameras capture sunlight stretching across stones, shadows telling scientists the size of rocks, the slope of hills. Without shadow, we would not know the shape of alien worlds. Solar eclipses, too, remain tools of science. During those brief minutes when the moon's shadow hides the sun, the corona is revealed. Scientists rush to measure its streams, its flares, its mysteries. Only shadow makes them visible. Even our nearest star gives up secrets only when darkness intervenes. Shadows in science and technology remind us that progress is not about eliminating darkness. It is about learning to read it. Each shadow carries information. Each absence carries meaning. Shadows do not hide truth. They reveal it if we know how to look. Pause here. Think of the many shadows at work around you now. The shadow of your hand on the page, the shadow of buildings falling across streets, the invisible shadows in your medical images, the digital shadows on your screen, the cosmic shadows stretching across galaxies. They are everywhere, woven into both mystery and method. Science names them, technology uses them. But beneath the terms and tools, they remain what they always were: whispers of light, echoes of matter, the silent dance that frames reality. So rest in this thought. You live in a world rich with shadows, ancient and modern, cosmic and digital, seen and unseen. They are not empty. They are information, guidance, companions of light. As you drift tonight, let the science fall away. Let the equations soften. Hold only the feeling that even absence can be full, that even shadow can carry knowledge, that the universe writes truth not only in brightness, but in darkness too. Breathe. Let the shadows of science settle like gentle equations in your mind. You do not need to solve them. You only need to rest. Tomorrow, they will still be here, faithful, silent, the same as they have always been. Not all shadows fall upon the ground. Some fall within us, not cast by trees or mountains, but by thoughts, by memory, by the deep currents of the soul. These are the shadows of the mind, silent, hidden, sometimes feared, sometimes denied, but always present. Close your eyes. Turn not to the outside world, but inward. There you will find landscapes no less vast than deserts, no less deep than oceans. There too, light shines. And where there is light, there are shadows, a joy remembered, but beside it the shadow of longing, a success achieved, but beside it the shadow of doubt, a kindness given, but beside it the shadow of envy or pride or regret. Every bright moment of the mind casts its own silhouette. This does not mean we are broken. It means we are whole. Shadow is proof of light, and light is proof of shadow. Psychologists have given these inner shadows names. Sigmund Freud spoke of the unconscious, a place where hidden desires slept. Carl Jung went further, naming the shadow self. He said it was the part of us we do not wish to see, the traits we repress, the emotions we hide, the impulses we fear. To Jung, shadow was not evil. It was necessary. Without it, we are incomplete. To deny it is to deny part of ourselves. To face it is to become whole. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To walk with your inner shadow, to acknowledge it without judgment, is to take a step toward healing. Think of anger. When ignored, it becomes shadow, festering in silence. When acknowledged, it teaches boundaries, protects dignity, drives change. Think of fear. When hidden, it becomes shadow, whispering sabotage. When faced, it becomes caution, wisdom, clarity. Even envy in shadow gnaws at the soul. But when brought to light, it shows us what we desire, what we long to create for ourselves. Shadow emotions are not curses. They are signals waiting to be understood. Every culture has sensed this. In myths, the hero must often face a double, a darker twin, a monster in the cave, a dragon breathing shadow. The battle is never only with the outside world, it is with the shadow inside. To win, the hero must not only conquer, but integrate. The monster slain becomes wisdom gained. The shadow embraced becomes strength revealed. You may notice your own shadows in quiet moments. A sudden irritation that surprises you. A dream that unsettles. A memory you avoid. These are not accidents. They are shadows of the mind, asking to be seen. They often appear when you rest. At night, when the world is dim, thoughts rise uninvited. Regrets, worries, faces from the past. They slip across the mind like silhouettes. You may feel discomfort, but remember, they are not there to harm. They are reflections of yourself, parts of you waiting for light. Neuroscience too whispers this truth. The brain is never silent. Even at rest, networks hum. Memories surface, fade, resurface again. We call it the default mode network, but it feels like shadows moving within thought. Not clear images, but impressions. Not full light, but outlines. Science describes circuits. The soul feels shadows. There is healing in turning toward them. Therapists guide patients to meet their shadow selves, to listen instead of suppress. In those conversations, a person learns that shadow is not enemy, but messenger. It points toward wounds that need tending, toward strengths forgotten. Even meditation, that practice of silence, invites shadows to rise. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and soon old thoughts appear, not bright, not sharp, but hazy, like silhouettes in fogs. The practice is not to chase them away, but to notice them, to sit with them, to let them soften in awareness. Shadows lose their weight when we stop running from them. Artists and writers often confess that their greatest work comes from these inner shadows. Pain, doubt, longing, when shaped into art, become beauty. The shadow within creates light without. What we fear most inside us may be what the world needs to hear. Now pause with yourself. Consider your own inner landscape. Is there a memory you avoid? An emotion you bury? A trait you dislike? Do not push it away. Do not fight it. See it instead as shadow, silent, patient, already part of you. You are not only light, you are not only shadow, you are both. To embrace both is to be whole. There is a calm that comes when we accept this truth. No longer at war with ourselves, we rest. Shadows become companions, not threats. They guide us gently, teach us quietly. They remind us that perfection is not endless brightness, but harmony of contrasts. So as you breathe now, let the shadows of your mind settle. They do not need to be solved tonight. They only need to be welcomed. Like old friends visiting in silence, they sit beside you. They will not leave, but they will not harm. They are part of your story, part of your strength. Rest with them. Allow them to soften. And as sleep comes, know that your inner shadows are not darkness against you, but gentle proof that your light exists. Every person carries a shadow, not just the one cast by sun or lamp, but the quieter one within, the shadow self. It follows us through years, sometimes ignored, sometimes feared, but always present. And yet, though we resist it, it is part of our wholeness. To reject it is to remain divided. To face it is to begin healing. What is this shadow self? Carl Jung described it as all that we repress: anger, jealousy, doubt, desire, impulses we deny, traits we disown. But it is not only negative. Sometimes the shadow holds gifts, talents we have buried, dreams we have silenced, strengths we have forgotten. It is the unlit room of the soul where treasures and terrors lie together. For many, the shadow feels frightening. To look into it is to risk discomfort. Old wounds rise, shame stirs, fear whispers. But healing does not begin in avoidance. Healing begins in the gentle turning of the gaze, in the courage to say, yes, this too is me. Imagine sitting with your shadow self as you would with a quiet guest. You do not need to interrogate. You do not need to fix. You only need to listen. Ask softly, what have I hidden? What have I denied? What are you trying to show me? At first, silence. Then perhaps an image, a childhood memory, a face you forgot, a feeling you once pushed away. It does not come to harm you. It comes to be acknowledged. Every part of us longs to be seen, even the shadow. Healing with the shadow self is not a sudden blaze of light. It is a slow process, like dawn. At first, only dim outlines appear. Then details grow clearer, but the light must rise gently or the eyes ache. So it is with the soul. Shadows soften gradually, and we learn to live with them as companions, not enemies. Therapists sometimes guide people through shadow work. They invite writing letters to the parts of ourselves we dislike. They ask patients to dialogue with their fears, to imagine speaking to anger, to sit with jealousy, to thank sorrow for its lessons. It feels strange, but it is powerful, for when we give voice to the shadow, it no longer hides. And when it no longer hides, it loses its power to control us unconsciously. Consider anger. Ignored, it erupts in ways we regret. Acknowledged, it teaches boundaries, self-respect, justice. Consider sadness. Denied, it drains vitality. Accepted, it opens compassion, empathy, deep connection with others. Even fear, when met, becomes guidance, a map pointing to what matters most. The shadow self is not a prison. It is a reservoir. Within its dark waters lie truths that nourish growth. Healing also means forgiving, not only others, but ourselves. The shadow often holds shame, mistakes replayed, words unsaid, choices unloved. To heal is to sit with those memories and say, I was human, I was learning. I forgive the shadow for being what it is. I forgive myself for carrying it so long. Forgiveness turns shadow into teacher. It transforms weight into wisdom. Cultures have intuited this for centuries. In myths, the hero must journey into darkness, face monsters, descend into underworlds. The monsters are shadows of the self. The underworld is the unconscious. The hero emerges not only victorious, but changed, integrated, whole. Every healing story echoes this. To go down is to rise renewed. You may notice in your own life moments when healing shadow occurs quietly. A dream where you meet a stranger and realize it is part of you. A memory that once hurt but now brings tenderness. A flaw you once despised that becomes a strength. Sensitivity, vulnerability, humility. These are signs that light is meeting shadow, but healing is not erasing. The shadow never vanishes. It is not meant to. Light without shadow is blinding. Shadow without light is emptiness. Healing is balance. It is learning to walk with both by your side. Imagine yourself on a path at sunset. The sun glows before you. Your shadow stretches behind. Both move with you. Both belong to you. One shows your form in brightness. The other shows your outline in silence. Neither is complete without the other. This is wholeness. Psychologists today speak of integration. It means allowing the conscious self to embrace what was hidden, no longer splitting the soul into pieces, but uniting them. Integration does not make us perfect. It makes us real. It gives depth, like shadow on a painting, like silence in music. Healing with the shadow self also means patience. You cannot rush the night into morning. You cannot demand the moon reveal all. You can only sit in the twilight, trusting that balance will come. So it is with shadow. Each time you face it gently, it softens. Each time you welcome it, you grow. Now rest with this thought. You carry light. You carry shadow. Both are yours. Both are sacred. The parts you hide are not your enemy. They are waiting for you, waiting to be touched with kindness, waiting to be included in your story. So breathe. Let the shadow self sit beside you. Do not turn away. Do not fight. Only acknowledge. Only welcome. This is healing. This is wholeness. This is peace. The future is a shadow, not yet solid, not yet formed, but present all the same. Every step you take casts it forward. Every choice you make stretches it wider. Like your own silhouette at dusk, the future leans ahead of you, long, shifting, uncertain. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing at sunset. Behind you lies the day, bright with memory. Before you lies the horizon, draped in shadow. You cannot see every detail, but you know something waits. The path, the trees, the turning road. They are there, hidden in dimness, shaped but not revealed. This is how the future feels. Philosophers have long spoken of it. Some call the future possibility, others call it uncertainty. But all agree, it is shadow, not pure darkness, not full light, but a space where both exist. Kierkegaard wrote of anxiety as the dizziness of freedom, the shadow cast by infinite choices. Every option stretches before us, but we cannot choose them all. The shadow is both gift and burden, freedom to shape tomorrow, uncertainty of what that shaping will bring. Science too whispers the same. Physicists say the future is not fixed. It exists as probabilities, like overlapping shadows. Only when observed, only when chosen, does one shadow sharpen into form. Quantum mechanics, with its strange dualities, echoes the feeling we all know. The future is a set of shadows, layered and waiting. In daily life, we feel this every time we wonder, what will happen if I go there? What will happen if I stay? Each question is a shadow stretching forward. We cannot walk them all. We walk one, and the others fade, but their memory lingers, ghostly outlines of what might have been. Regret, too, is born of future shadows. We look back and say, if only I had chosen differently, another shadow would have become real. But regret forgets something important. Those other shadows were uncertain, too. They carried their own risks, their own mysteries. We cannot know their light. We can only walk the shadow we chose. Cultures have always painted the future in shadow. Prophets spoke in riddles, visions cloaked in half-light. Oracles at Delphi gave answers like silhouettes, shaped but never clear. Their words reminded people that the future is not given in brightness. It arrives dim, ambiguous, leaving space for interpretation. Astrologers, too, watched shadows. The shadow of moon upon earth, the shadow of planets moving slowly through night. They read these shifting patterns as signs of what might come, not certainties, but possibilities, shadows of destiny stretching across the sky. And what of our personal future? It comes to us in dreams, of visions of a place we have not yet seen, a shadow of a face we have not yet met. We wake unsure, was it memory or prophecy? The dream leaves only impression, a shape in dimness. Yet sometimes, days or years later, we walk into that very moment and realize the dream was a shadow cast forward. The shadow of the future is not only mystery, it is also hope. For if the future were fully lit, fully fixed, there would be no room for change. But because it is shadow, we can shape it. because it is not yet clear, we can step into it with choice. Think of a seed. Buried in soil, it lies in shadow. The future tree is not visible, but it waits, shaped in potential. So it is with us. Our actions today are seeds in shadow, growing roots we cannot yet see. Tomorrow, perhaps years from now, they will rise into light. There is comfort in not knowing. Uncertainty is soft, like twilight. If we saw the whole path at once, we might lose the courage to walk it. But shadow hides what we are not ready for, reveals only what we can face now. The future is merciful in this way. It does not overwhelm us with clarity. It unfolds gently, like dawn lightening the horizon. Think of standing by the ocean at night. You cannot see beyond the first waves. The horizon is shadowed, hidden. Yet you know the ocean continues, vast and deep. You trust it, though you cannot see it. So it is with tomorrow. The waves of the present touch your feet. The shadows of the future stretch beyond. You cannot see every shore, but you know they are there. You trust the tide to carry you forward. Healing too belongs here. When you make peace with your inner shadow, the future no longer feels like threat. It feels like invitation. The parts of you once hidden now walk beside you. Together, you face what comes. The future's shadow no longer frightens. It becomes companion. Perhaps this is why people light candles when they pray for tomorrow. The flame is small, but it casts a shadow. The light does not banish darkness entirely, but it reminds the heart. Hope exists even in uncertainty. The future may be dim, but it is not empty. There is always glow within the shadow. Pause now. Think of your own tomorrow. Not the details, not the tasks, but the feeling. What does this shadow look like? Is it long, stretching softly? Is it misty, blurred with possibility? Do not fear its dimness. It is simply the unknown waiting for you. It is potential, not threat. Breathe gently. Let the thought soothe you. You do not need to solve the future tonight. You do not need to force clarity. You only need to rest, trusting that tomorrow will arrive in its own rhythm, its own light, its own shadow. The shadow of the future is a promise. It tells you that life is still unfolding, that not everything has been written, that possibilities still wait. It whispers that you are part of an unfinished story, that every step you take creates new silhouettes stretching ahead. So sleep now. Let the shadows of the future keep you company. They are gentle. They are patient. They do not demand answers. They only remind you still have paths to walk, dreams to discover, tomorrows to meet. Rest in that promise. The future is shadow, but within it, light is always waiting to rise. Since the first morning of your life, someone has walked beside you, silent, loyal, never demanding, never leaving. That someone is your shadow. It has no voice, no weight, no breath, and yet it has always been there, following every step, mirroring every gesture, a companion as constant as heartbeat. Think back to childhood. Perhaps you remember chasing your own shadow in play, running in the yard, watching it stretch before you, then racing to catch it. Perhaps you stood at sunset, amazed that you could grow tall as a giant, your shadow leaping far across the ground. Children laugh at shadows, test them, wave their arms and watch them echo. Already, the lesson is learned. We are never alone. At night, a small child may fear darkness, but a parent switches on a lamp and the child sees a shadow on the wall. "Look," says the parent, "it is you." Fear softens into wonder. The unknown becomes familiar. The shadow becomes friend. As we grow, the companionship deepens. Walk along a road at dawn, and your shadow leads you. It shows the way, long before your feet arrive. At noon, it hides beneath you, resting quietly. In the evening, it follows, like a friend walking home. All day, your shadow keeps rhythm with your life. There are moments when this companionship feels almost spiritual. Think of being alone in a field. The wind is still, the world hushed, and yet when you glance beside you, there is your shadow. Silent proof that you exist, that you belong to the dance of light. It does not speak, but it reassures. It whispers, "You are here." Poets have long felt this. Rabindranath Tagore wrote, "The stars are not afraid to appear like fireflies, and we too need not fear smallness, for even our shadow follows with dignity." In poems and songs, shadow becomes symbol of loyalty, a companion no circumstance can erase. Even in loneliness, shadow remains. When friends are far, when night is heavy, when silence surrounds, your shadow still rests near. It does not leave when you stumble. It does not judge when you fall. It simply waits for you to rise again, ready to walk once more. In some cultures, to stand in another's shadow is a sign of trust. It means safety, protection, closeness. In others, to sit together in shade is to share life's gentleness. Always the image is the same: shadow as presence, as connection. Think too of journeys. Travelers crossing deserts seek the shadow of a rock for rest. Sailors on deck watch the sails cast shade against the sea. Pilgrims pause beneath trees, their shadows like companions offering comfort. Wherever we go, shadow provides company, reminding us we are never truly solitary. Children sometimes pretend their shadow is another playmate. They talk to it, dance with it, challenge it to games. And perhaps they are not wrong, for is it not a kind of friend? It walks when you walk, sits when you sit, runs when you run. It knows you better than anyone, because it has never been apart from you. As we age, the shadow grows gentler. We may no longer chase it in fields, but we notice it still. A hand resting on a windowsill throws a silhouette on the wall. An old couple walking at dusk cast two long shadows that touch, intertwining on the pavement. Even when bodies grow frail, shadows remain graceful. They carry dignity, a quiet beauty of their own. There are times too when the shadow feels like memory. Sit in an empty chair, and for a moment you may see the outline of someone who once sat there. Not real, but real enough. The shadow reminds us that love leaves traces, companions that linger even when people have gone. And what of the final journey? Even at life's end, shadow stays. In many traditions, the departing soul is described as a shadow walking into the distance. Families speak of seeing shapes at the edge of vision, gentle silhouettes that carry memory. The shadow, as companion, does not stop at death. It continues in story, in love, in the ways we remember. Perhaps that is why we find comfort in shadows, not because they are bright, but because they are faithful. They do not need to shine. They only need to stay. Now imagine yourself walking at sunset. The air is cool. The sky glows with fading gold. You glance down, and there your shadow stretches beside you, long, calm, silent. You do not need to speak. You only need to know that it is there, that it always has been, always will be. The companionship of shadow teaches us something profound, that presence does not need noise, that loyalty does not need words. Sometimes it is enough simply to walk beside. Sometimes it is enough simply to be. So rest now. Let your own shadow be your comfort. It lies beside you, even in this quiet room, not visible in darkness, but present all the same. It listens, it waits, it does not demand, it only keeps you company. When morning comes, your shadow will rise with you. It will lead you into the day, then follow you into the night. It will grow and shrink, but it will never leave. And one day, when you are gone, its memory will linger in the shadows of those who loved you. So breathe gently. Feel the presence of your companion. You are never alone. You are always accompanied by silence, by loyalty, by the quiet dance of your shadow. Rest in that companionship. Let it cradle you into sleep. Your shadow waits, faithful and patient, a friend forever at your side. Since the dawn of thought, humans have asked, what is real? What is illusion? What is truth? And what is only the shadow of truth? Shadows invite these questions. They look like the world, yet they are not the world. They resemble form, yet they are only outline. They move when we move, yet they vanish when the light is gone. They are faithful, but they are not substance. Perhaps the most famous meditation on shadows is Plato's allegory of the cave. He imagined prisoners chained in darkness, facing a wall. Behind them, a fire burns. Between the fire and the prisoners, figures pass, objects, animals, people. Their shapes fall upon the wall as shadows. The prisoners, having never seen the real forms, believe the shadows are reality itself. Plato asked, what if one prisoner is freed? He turns, sees the fire, sees the real objects. At first, the light blinds him, but slowly he understands. What he saw before were only shadows, reflections, echoes. And if he walks outside the cave, into sunlight, his world expands beyond imagining. The allegory suggests that much of what we call knowledge may be shadow play, appearances, not essence, echoes, not truth. The philosopher, Plato said, must turn toward the light, toward the sun of reason, of clarity, of what is real. But others have found meaning not in fleeing shadows, but in embracing them. For is it not true that shadows reveal as much as they conceal? The cave wall may be an illusion, but it is also the beginning of vision. Children learn the world first, through outlines, through silhouettes, before details. Shadows are teachers too. Philosophers after Plato have wrestled with this. Nietzsche wrote of truth as a shifting set of perspectives, warning that what we see may be shadows of deeper forces. He urged us to question who casts the shadow, what power arranges the fire. Reality itself may be a kind of theater. Phenomenologists like Husserl and Merleau-Ponty spoke of perception. They reminded us that we never see the world whole. We see fragments, angles, partial truths. Every object we behold is partly in shadow. We can circle it, study it, but some side is always hidden. To live is to live with partial vision, with shadow as constant companion. In Eastern philosophy, too, shadow has its place. In Taoism, the yin and yang embrace each other, light and dark, shadow and radiance, each giving meaning to the other. Shadow is not illusion to be escaped. It is half of reality itself. To reject it is to reject balance. To accept it is to walk in harmony. Buddhism teaches impermanence. All forms, bright or dim, are passing. To cling to light is as misguided as to cling to shadow. Both are fleeting, both reflections of a deeper emptiness, a deeper stillness. The play of shadow teaches us to loosen our grip, to rest in what is. Modern thinkers, too, speak of shadows in new ways. Psychology, as we saw, calls them hidden selves. Sociology notes that societies cast shadows, groups pushed aside, histories forgotten. To study culture is to study its shadows, the parts left unspoken, unseen. Technology creates its own shadows, the digital shadow each of us leaves behind. Search histories, data trails, reflections of our lives spread across invisible networks. These are not us, yet they resemble us. They are silhouettes of our choices, echoes of our presence, shadows of identity in the modern age. So what then is reality? Is it the bright object or the shadow it casts? Perhaps it is both. The philosopher seeks truth in clarity, but the poet reminds us truth is also in suggestion, in outline, in half-seen form. A face revealed fully in harsh light may lose its mystery. A face glimpsed in shadow may stir more truth in the heart. Think of your own life. How many times have you mistaken shadows for substance? Perhaps you judged someone by appearance, only to learn the deeper story later. Perhaps you feared a future that never arrived, a shadow of possibility mistaken for fate. Or perhaps you overlooked quiet gifts within yourself because they hid in shadow, waiting for patience to reveal them. We live in a cave of our own making sometimes. We see outlines on the wall, roles, expectations, fears. But we forget to turn around, to ask what light casts them. We forget to step outside, to see the larger sky. And yet, we need not despise shadows. They are not enemies. They are reminders that vision is limited, that mystery remains. Without shadows, the world would be unbearably bright, flattened, stripped of depth. Shadows give texture to truth. They tell us, you do not see everything. And that humility, that gentle unknowing, is its own kind of wisdom. Pause here. Picture yourself in Plato's cave, but do not rush to escape. Instead, watch the shadows for a while. Notice how they move, how they flicker, how they resemble truth, even if they are not truth. Let them remind you that all perception is partial, that mystery will always remain. There is peace in accepting this. There is rest in knowing that you do not need to see all. The philosophical shadow teaches us balance. It tells us to seek clarity, but also to honor mystery, to value truth, but not despise illusion. For even illusions can guide, even silhouettes can inspire, even shadows can point toward the real. So breathe now. Let the shadows of thought settle. You do not need to solve philosophy tonight. You do not need to answer the question of truth. It is enough to rest in the knowing that both light and shadow are part of reality. It is enough to trust that wisdom comes not only in brightness, but also in dimness, in echoes, in outlines. Rest in that quiet. Let shadows of philosophy soothe you. They are not burdens. They are reminders that life is mystery, that truth is layered, that you are always walking in the gentle dance of both. The journey has been long. From the first flicker of fire on cave walls to the vast eclipses that darken the sky, from forests filled with shifting shade to the quiet corners of the mind, we have walked with shadows. Now, as we reach the end of this path, let us pause. Let us rest in their company one last time. For shadows are not only beginnings, not only mysteries, not only companions along the way. They are endings too, gentle closures, soft veils, the final dance of light and darkness together. Think back to the very first moment we began. We asked, what is a shadow? Is it absence? Is it presence? Is it illusion or truth? And through each step, we found that it is all of these. Shadow is science and symbol, fear and comfort, mystery and revelation. It is not one meaning, but many. It changes with the angle of light, with the eyes of the beholder, with the time of day, with the turning of history. We saw shadows in nature, branches painting lace upon the ground, clouds sweeping valleys into dimness, waves scattering light into ripples below the sea. We saw them in art, Caravaggio's chiaroscuro, the subtle dimness praised in Japanese rooms, the drama of cinema and stage. We saw them in literature, Shakespeare's fleeting candle, Poe's raven silhouette, Dickinson's certain slant of light. We walked through cultures, Egyptian obelisks, Mesoamerican pyramids, African beliefs in spirit shadow, Arabian jinn moving like silhouettes, Japanese keiji whispering between worlds. We listened to folklore, the shadow people, the puppets against silk screens, the serpent descending a pyramid at dusk. We dreamt with them, remembered with them, measured history with their movement. We saw them in science, umbras and penumbra, waves and particles, exoplanets discovered in the dimming of stars. We saw them in psychology, the shadow self, the parts of us we bury, the wounds that ask to be healed. We walked with them as companions, faithful from childhood to old age. We asked philosophy what they mean, and learned that truth itself is always partly shadow. And now, at the end, we see the simplest truth of all. Shadows are part of life. They do not need to be conquered, nor erased, nor feared. They only need to be accepted. For without them, light is meaningless. Without them, depth disappears. Without them, we would not see. Imagine now the closing of a day. The sun lowers, the sky deepens. Shadows grow long, then merge until the whole earth rests in darkness. This is the final dance. Not a battle, but a surrender. Not defeat, but completion. Light does not fight shadow. It yields to it, trusting that it will rise again. So too in our lives. We chase light, we fear dark, but in the end, both belong. Both weave the story. Both guide us gently toward rest. In the silence of night, the shadows soften. They no longer stretch sharply. They no longer frighten. They blend into one another, a blanket across the world. You rest within that blanket now. It covers you without weight, holds you without chains. It whispers, quiet as breath, you are safe, you are home. The final dance of shadows is not about mystery or knowledge. It is about peace. It is about letting go of the need to see clearly, of the need to understand completely. It is about trusting that even in darkness, light is not gone. It waits. It always waits. Close your eyes. Imagine all the shadows we have visited: the forests, the caves, the pyramids, the cathedrals, the art, the poems, the myths, the memories, the planets casting their silhouettes across the cosmos, the quiet twin within your mind. See them all gather now, not as fragments, but as a chorus. Each shadow bows, each shadow sways, each shadow joins the dance, and in the center, a single light glows, soft, steady, enough to hold them all. This is the truth. Light and shadow do not exist apart. They are partners, they are dancers, they are one. As you drift towards sleep, let that image remain. A universe filled with shadows, each one faithful, each one gentle. They do not demand explanation. They do not press for action. They only remind you that rest is part of the dance, that silence is part of the song, that night is part of the day. So breathe slowly now. Feel your own shadow beside you. It does not vanish in the dark. It only merges with the greater whole. You are part of that whole. You are part of the endless rhythm. Light moves, shadow follows, shadow deepens, light returns. The dance continues. It always has. It always will. Rest then. Let the shadows hold you. Let the final dance carry you into quiet sleep. There is nothing to fear, nothing to chase, nothing to solve. Only the soft embrace of darkness, only the whisper of shadows, only the promise that light will come again. You are safe in the dance. You are whole in the balance. You are home in the silence. And now, let the shadows close around you, gentle and patient, guiding you into dreams.